What if I told you you could make a sourdough sandwich loaf just like this one without kneading, without doing stretch and folds, without babysitting the dough at all? I'm going to show you right now. I started with 100 grams of cold starter straight from the fridge. So unlike most sourdough recipes, this starter was fed about 4 days ago. I used some for a different recipe and then I put it in the fridge. So it's been sitting in there for 4 days. I am now taking 100 grams and putting it in my bowl. This is unfed and straight out of the refrigerator. Next, I added 350 grams of room temperature water. So this is just tap water or straight from my sink, nothing fancy at all. Now later, I'm going to add 25 grams of milk powder. If you would rather use milk instead of milk powder, you're going to use 250 grams of milk and 100 grams of water at this step. The reason for the milk is that it adds softness to the loaf. So when you're making sandwiches, you don't want crumbly bread. You want something nice and soft. Feel free to use a milk alternative like almond milk, cashew milk, or whichever one you prefer. I wanted to keep things really simple for this loaf, so I am adding 425 grams of all-purpose flour. I happen to be using your standard unbleached all-purpose flour. You can use any all-purpose flour that you have and hopefully just try to find something that's of good quality. I don't recommend bread flour for this. It's just very, very dense. So an all-purpose, easy to find flour should be perfect. This is where I added the 25 grams of milk powder. So again, if you're going to use milk powder, and this could be an alternative like coconut or soy milk powder, then you're going to be using the 350 grams of water at the beginning. If you're going to use milk or a milk alternative that is already liquid, you're going to do 250 grams of milk and 100 grams of water and no milk powder. Next, I added 9 grams of salt. I love to use Redmond real salt. It is mined in Utah and it is a wonderful salt, adds great flavor and has a lot of great minerals in it. That's it for the ingredients. The next step is just to combine everything really, really well. You want to be sure that there are no dry spots in here and everything is completely combined. I'm using a dough whisk. There are several styles out there. This is a wooden one. There are some really nice metal ones as well. I'll be sure to link any of the tools that I'm using below just to give you an idea of what I like to use. So don't be shy about mixing this up. You can get really aggressive. You can use your hands if you prefer. You just really, really want to make sure that there is no dry flour left in your bowl. So that's about it for the hands-on portion. We're now just going to cover this. You want to be sure it's covered really well so that it doesn't dry out because it's going to sit on your counter at room temperature for about 12 hours. So after about 12 hours, I'm going to get my loaf pan ready. This is a Pullman loaf pan. It's a 1-pound pan and it works great for baking bread because it has this cover on there and that ensures that it makes like this little steam chamber which helps your bread rise. I'm spraying it down with some oil and then I'm going to lightly flour it with some rice flour. I do make my own rice flour. I just throw some rice into a blender and blend it up until it's a nice fine flour. This is just going to help ensure that the loaf slides out easily once it's done baking. So here's my dough after 12 hours. Not very impressive, but just hold tight because it's going to come out really, really nice. I'm using my dough scraper to get that dough out. It is a sticky dough, so this just helps me keep my hands a little bit clean. But you can see that it has risen and you can see those gluten strands in there. So I did loosely shape this. Like I said, it's a really loose, high hydration loaf, so it's kind of difficult to shape. So you could actually just pour this directly into your Pullman loaf pan if that's easier for you. Even with wet hands, this dough was super sticky and difficult to kind of shape. I tried to use my dough scraper here. One thing you don't want to do is add flour to your work surface because it's going to change this bread. If you add flour, you're taking away the hydration, which will cause this bread to be more dense and it won't be as moist. So then we'll place the cover on here and then this is going to go in the refrigerator overnight. So for me, that was from about 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So this is the next morning. I took it straight out of the fridge. That's a really nice long ferment. It helps break down the gluten more. You won't see much rise at all and it's going to be much firmer because it's been in the cold. But this is great for digestion and a lot of people like this cold ferment. Next, we're going to preheat our oven to 400 degrees and we'll leave the dough out on the counter while the oven preheats up to an hour. Once that's done, go ahead and pop that in the oven with the lid on top. I didn't do any scoring or anything special. I just popped it in the oven and set my timer for 45 minutes. After that first 45 minutes, I took it out to check on it, took the lid off, and it looked great. So I wanted to get that top a little bit more browned. I put it back in the oven for 15 to 20 more minutes without the lid on. And here is my final results. So it's a beautiful loaf. You can see it browned on the sides and bottom. It is perfectly shaped for sandwiches and toast and for dippy eggs. It just smells divine and looks fantastic. Now, you're going to want to cut into this right away, and I highly, highly recommend you wait until it's completely cool, or for at least an hour. Believe it or not, it's still going through the baking process as it cools. The proof is always in the crumb, so let's get a couple slices off and then you can check out how this really turned out. For me and my sandwich loaves, I want to have a bread that is airy but doesn't have big holes so that it can hold in whatever it is I'm making my sandwiches out of. And that's exactly what I got here. It's much softer than traditional sourdough due to the milk, and it has a nice thin crust.